Welcome everybody to another Sunday night webinar. Tonight we have our Chief Judge, Christopher Walker, who is going to give us some guidance and some encouragement to be involved in the judging process. And I have one little quiz to send out first, which will give Christopher an idea of who is here. Please answer all the parts that apply to you. It's a multiple choice, so you can answer multiple points, and this will give us an idea of your experience as judges up till now. I didn't need to ask the question, are you going to be a judge in the future? Because I know you all will want to be. And as those results come whacking in, about a third of people have never been a judge so far. I hand you over to our wonderful Chief Judge, Christopher Walker.
Okay, so welcome to this judging webinar. So the first thing I always say is, have you thought of reading the documentation? Toastmasters International has got lots on speech contest. The District 91 website has got quite a lot of links and scripts and everything that you can take advantage of. So if you are organising a conference, if you are contest chair, if you are chief judge, that is going to be really helpful. So thank you, Mr. Zoom Master, for the first question. So I'm going to talk a little bit about contests. I'm going to talk, so there's a balance of people, and did we share the results of people's level of experience? When we get there, if we can we share the results for the level of experience? So it looks like there's quite a broad range of experience, from people who've never judged before through to people who have judged at club and be chief judge at club and area level. So hopefully there will be a little bit for everybody, and hopefully there will be some time for some questions and answers at the end. So I gave a talk this morning, or a panel session this morning, and I thought, look at the resources, read the rule book, and I have to say that the best way of running a decent contest is to reciprocate with other clubs, swap judges with other clubs, and go and judge at other clubs. Watch what they do, watch what they do well, think about what they do well, think about how you could do better. The other thing I will say, particularly if you're running a contest, is do not rush it. You, particularly as chief judge, feel under pressure to get results out soon. And the time that I announced the right results for the wrong competition as chief judge was particularly embarrassing, and not a mistake I will make again. And that was just through feeling under pressure to get things out quickly. So give yourself plenty of time. And clearly you need to follow the rule book, but what you need to do is think of what is the right thing to do. You want a fair contest with everybody, and if there is nothing else, think, what is the right thing to do? What is the morally right thing to do? And that will almost certainly follow what is in the rule book. So what are the purposes of a speech contest? Well, Toastmasters International say it's to provide an opportunity to practice competitive public speaking. And it's to provide interesting educational programs for members and the public, and to provide an opportunity to learn by observing proficient speakers. And I have to say, it's really interesting judging, and it really improved my speaking, thinking critically about, amongst the speakers, what have they done well, and what am I thinking, oh, that speaker's better than this other speaker. So it's a wonderful opportunity, judging, to do that. As a judge, you have an obligation to the contestants, to Toastmasters International, to the audience, of course, and to yourselves. You need to read the rule book to prevent misconceptions. For the novice judges, it's really useful to have read the rule book, but the key thing is to have read the judging criteria, the judging form. So are you eligible to be a judge? That eligibility form and the judge's ballot. Those are the two key things. As a contest organizer, you need to think it through, practice, volunteer at other contests, and think what could possibly go wrong, and have a little bit of a backup plan. And that goes for chief judge as well. Organising a contest, have far more than the minimum judges. And as a novice judge, this makes your life easier, because if you get the inverted commas wrong answer, you will be outvoted. So contest organisers have lots of judges, therefore the novice judges think, well, I will do the best I can, and clearly you all will. But don't worry too much about it, because if you get the wrong answer, in quotes, it doesn't matter. You will be outvoted. For area contests, you need balance. You want to show balance in the judges, so they're not all from one club. The rule book has some more details, and there will be questions in the quiz afterward at the end of this. So one of the things that seems to cause problems is using the tiebreaker judge. So I thought I would go through it with you. Now, for those who are novice judges and have never judged, you have a number of voting judges. The chief judge doesn't vote, and there is a super secret tiebreaker judge whose role is to break ties, and they're usually an experienced judge, and if you have 10 speakers in the contest, they have to rank all 10 in order. As a normal voting judge, you only have to come up with the first 3. So I have picked a list of competitors: Andy Hammond, Hilary Briggs, Jean Gamester, Pedro Casillas, and Vanessa King. They happen to be ex-district directors. And some imaginary scores from 6 imaginary judges. And a tiebreaker's official ballot. So, what do we do? The first thing to do is to add the scores up. And if you're a ballot counter, and a ballot counter, by the way, is a really interesting place to be, because you get to see all the scores, and you can see how the judges have voted. And that also adds to your confidence as a judge, I think, because if the judges are all over the place, you can see that some judges will agree with you, some will disagree. And you will also gain confidence in judging by fulfilling that role. It's a lovely role to take. However, you need to add the numbers up. Now, what you must also do, if you add these numbers up, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 competitors, and there are 6 judges. 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 6, and 6 times 5 is 30. So if you add these numbers at the bottom up, they should add up to 30. Do they add up to 30? I think they do. Actually, it was I'm getting worried here. Anyway, that you need to add these numbers up to make sure that they add up to 30. And if they don't, you've done something wrong. So those scores, you've got Hilary Briggs has 10. Hilary is the winner. On 9 points, you get Jean Gamester and Vanessa King. So what that means is that there's a tie between second and third place. So one of those is second, one of those is third, but you do not know which. And on 4 points, you get Andy Hammond and Pedro Casillas. And again, there's a tie between fourth and fifth place. So you, as chief judge, you pick out your tiebreaker ballot and you show it to the ballot counters. And you say, okay, Hilary Briggs was first. So Jean Gamester and Vanessa King. Well, which out of those two was voted first by the tiebreaker judge? It was Jean Gamester. So she ranks second and Vanessa King ranks third. And then between fourth and fifth place, you need to work out which of Andy Hammond and Pedro Casillas came fourth and fifth. And Pedro ranks higher than Andy. So the key thing is, you've added the numbers in the previous slide. You do not add scores from the tiebreaker ballot. You just use them to break the ties. So the result is first Hilary, second Jean, third Vanessa King, fourth Pedro Casillas, fifth Andy Hammond, which of course you do not announce. But please do send it up to the next level. So if you're at a club level, please send the result up to area, because if the first three participants can't compete, then the fourth participant can compete. Or indeed, in some contests, you only have 4 clubs in an area, and therefore 2 participants can compete at the area contest. So next, we're looking at the evaluation form. So this is a screenshot of an evaluation form. On the front, that is a judge's ballot rather. On the front is the scores, and on the back are an explanation of the criteria. So the only thing that the chief judge and the ballot counters want to see is this bottom bit of the form that I'm going to be waving my mouse around. They do not want to see your scores. You can do whatever you like with that. You can fill it in online. You can print out the paper and scribble on it. I personally am a bit old school. I like to fill it out on paper and scribble on it. Now, as a novice judge, you need to look at the judging criteria. So it's broken down for the evaluation contest into analytical quality, recommendations, technique, and summation. So you get 15 points for summation. So you get 15 points for giving a summary. If you don't give a summary, then it might be suggested that perhaps you shouldn't get any points for that. You get 30 points for giving recommendations. If you don't give any recommendations of how the speech can be improved, I think you're going to struggle as a speaker to get any points for that. And then analytical quality, it talks about the effectiveness of the evaluation, analysing the strengths and weaknesses of the presentation, and are the evaluator's comments clear and logical? And do you identify specific strengths and weaknesses of the presentation? Think about it. And I have to say the best thing you can do here is practice. Go to contests. Even if you are not an official judge, it's actually quite instructive to look at those criteria and think how you would evaluate a contestant. But ultimately, we're going to have to leave you guys to use your professional judgment on what you are going to award the points for and how you're going to award between excellent going down to just fair or poor. And those points are out of 100. Nobody will ever see this top part of the form. It's only you. Some people like to put the speakers in order. There's no reason, and some people like to do it this way, that you put the first speaker in slot 10 and the next speaker in slot 9 and fold the piece of paper over so that you can't see the scores. Other people do it differently. And if you decide some way through the contest that you've misjudged the level and you've given somebody 30 out of 30 for their evaluation, and the next evaluation has even better recommendations, there's no reason you can't give them a few more points. But you really ought to stick within the criteria and the scales. But remember, at the end of the day, the only thing that you ever send to the chief judge and the ballot counters is this bottom part of the form. For the International Speech Contest, there are more criteria and it's a little bit more complicated. But look at the criteria, see how speech fulfills those criteria, and see how they compare to each other in those particular criteria. And perhaps we can come back to this at the end if we have time and if people think it's valuable. I don't want to talk at you for a certain amount of time. So now I've got a quiz with 1 or 2 questions, or about 20 actually. So the first question was, are you going to read the rulebook? If we can share the results, please, Mr. Zoom Master.
Everybody who voted said yes.
Excellent. Well, you've all got the first question right. Can we launch the next question, please? So, next question is, when did pathways roll out? Oh, as I can see. And if you'd like to put in the chat why I've asked that question, why do you think I've asked that question? The answer, by the way, is on the district website in the contest section, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, if we can share the results, please. So the majority got it right. It was the 20th of March 2018. And that's important because you can only use speeches from the old manuals if you were a member before that date. If you joined after 20th of March 2018, in order to participate in the International Speech Contest, you must have been you must have levels 1 and 2 in pathways. Prior to that, you can use competent communicator speeches. It also has an impact on judging. Right. Can we go to the next one, please? Ooh. A little bit more difficult.
This is a multiple choice question, guys, this one. So you can tick as many as that you think are suitable. And just to clear up, there's been some conversation in chat. The tiebreaker judge is only there to give the tie-breaking control. They do not, their votes are not counted in any way in the judging. It's only when there's a tiebreaker are they then referred to. Otherwise, they have nothing to do. They have no votes. The other judges do the votes and they are counted to put the order. Tiebreaker judge only involved when there's 2 people with the same number of votes.
Yeah, actually, it sounds like it would be, sounds like it might be worth going back on that and looking at it. Is that worthwhile for people?
Yeah, we're getting quite a few nods, Chris.
You're getting quite a few nods. Right. Okay. Let us go back and right. I can find. Right. Let's share. I want to share that screen. And what I want to do is right. Okay. So, John, would you like to, if you've been reading the questions, where should I start?
Well, I think the confusion is that your tiebreaker judge has got a completely different order to the other judges.
Aha.
And therefore people thought, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? It actually doesn't mean anything. It's the tiebreaker's judge's responsibility to decide what they think the order should be, and their view is only used in the event of a tie, and therefore it's probably, shall I say, it's up to the chief judge in the contest to choose someone that they can rely on to give them a decent tie-break result.
I think that's pretty good. And let me say the same thing in a different way. So looking at this form here, these are the voting judges, and they have voted these scores, which I summarize on the next page. And this is, and at this point, once you've counted up the voting judges' scores, you give 10 points to Ellie Briggs, 9 to Jean Gamester, Vanessa King, 4 to Andy Hammond and Pedro Garcias. And so you think, oh dear, I've got a tie. In fact, I've got 2 ties. Only at this point do you need to open the tiebreaker judge's ballot. And I have quite deliberately put the first place person from the voting judges last, because in this random example, because the sole purpose of the tiebreaker judge is to break these ties. The voting judges have priority, but they haven't decided. So it's the most difficult job because as you see, there are 10 places, but if there are 20 participants, the tiebreaker judge will have to rank all 20, and that's really quite difficult. However, it is only the first 3 that everybody else ranks. When they haven't decided, you just look at the tiebreakers to see who has got the highest score of the pair. Is that reasonably clear to people?
Chris, can I just comment? The tiebreaker judge doesn't actually put scoring numbers. They just rank 1 to whatever the number of. There's no scoring number against it. It's just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the order. They don't actually judge in the same way as giving points, if you know what I mean, the way that they do in the voting one, which is just 1, 2, and 3, because you go first, second, and third. The tiebreaker judge just lists them all out. There's no then point allocation. I think that's where the confusion's coming.
Yes, and this is what often confuses people in the contests, that they realise they've got a tie and then try to add scores from the tiebreaker judge. That's completely the wrong thing to do. You just look at the competitors where there is a tie and find the highest one in the tiebreaker judge's score. Is that clearer to people? And I think Hella and John and I are saying the same thing. I think it's also if you read through it, the only time you'll probably really ever understand it is once you've got a tie and had to do it. And it's sort of completely obvious once you've done it, but until you've done it in the abstract, it's a sort of slightly difficult to explain. But it is something that I have seen people get wrong or struggle with. And the other thing that's quite important is that on the forms up to the next level, please use the notification of contest winner forms and put names, clubs, and email addresses and phone numbers for people, so that the next, they're all on one form, it's all in one place, and everybody can see all of, and the next contest organisers have got one piece of paper with all the information to hand. They don't have to scrabble around looking for it in multiple different places. So I can see my slides, and is that clearer to people, or have people still got questions? I'm happy to spend a bit of time if people have got questions.
The only other thing which may throw people is the judges don't see the scores. As a judge, you score somebody and then you put an order in. The chief judge and the ballot counters don't see the scores. All they get is the order, and they set a number for the order so you can work out what the order is from each judge, and then you get a cumulative answer of where people are according to the judges. But the judges do not see the score, they only see the ranking, the order of the contestants.
So if on this thing, which I think I'm still sharing,
yeah,
this judges need to fill in these things and sign it by some name and print their name. These are the ranking points for counters use only. So they score 3 points for the first place, 2 points for the second place, and 1 point for the third place. But that judges don't need to worry about. That's a job for the counters. And one thing I will say actually for counting things up is make sure that make sure that the ballot counters receive the ballots separately directly from the judges. So there are a number of means of doing that. The way I prefer is for the chief judge to send an email to both of the ballot counters and blind carbon copied to all of the judges. So if they do that, the judges cannot see each other's scores. They don't get each other's email addresses and can't accidentally email each other, but they have a valid email address, and the ballots go straight to the ballot counters. They don't go through the chief judge's hands. So everybody has confidence that there has first off been some cross-check, but also that the chief judge couldn't have filled it even if he or she had wanted to. And I think it's quite important that just judging is not only fair, but seen to be fair. And whilst you should maintain the confidentiality of this, and it's important that you do maintain the confidentiality, it's the ballot counters can say, I have seen the judges' ballots and I have added them up myself and I agree with the result, and it hasn't been tampered with. I mean, I generally trust in people's integrity. I am slightly less trusting of people's competence, and certainly the last time I was chief judge, I added the scores up wrong. I transposed two numbers, or two judges, I forget which, and the ballot counters act as a cross-check. And we all went back and had a look and worked out what the difference was, and then fixed the problem. But it's really, really useful and really important that you get that. Right. So some contestants only got 2 places and some got 4. So let's go back to this ballot counter, to the slide. And okay, so Julie, do you want to sort of explain what your you're asking questions in the chat. Do you want to sort of pop up if you're happy and ask the question and explain what your concern or how your
I'll try. I don't know whether I can make it clear. I don't want to muddy the waters further.
No.
I understand now that number 3 means that judge ranked them first.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But
they get 3 points. Yep.
Yes, but adding them up, then you're looking for those who get the most points. But
correct.
Some judges didn't rank some competitors at all. So correct. Shouldn't they get a 4?
Okay. So the ranking points. So the way that Toastmasters have chosen to do it is that for first place you get 3 points. For second place you get 2 points. For third place you get 1 point, and for fourth, fifth, and so on place you get 0 points. Does that make sense? So you score more points for placing higher.
Okay. All right.
And the fact that that's the reverse of the first, second, and third place is I can see confusing and probably something. I think I initially gave this to a different audience, and so that would perhaps worth going through. But can you see now that you so
yeah,
Judge 1
I can
has
now.
scored.
I did not understand
No, that's
3, 2, 1 at first, but
okay, and somebody else is asking for the way it adds up. So judges award 3 points. So the first place gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, and third place gets 1 point. So if you have a judge, there are 6 points to be awarded. There are 6 judges, each awarding 6 points, and so that should add up to 36, not 30, as I said earlier. So I was wrong when, as Helena has put in the chat, 6 times 6 is 36. So 10 plus 18 is 28, plus 8 is 36. So you've added the numbers up. So add the numbers up across here, and they should add up to 6 times the number of judges. Is that so? You can see in 3 points for first place, 2 points for second place, 1 point for third place, 0 points for anything else. You can see that you get 1 person with 10 and 2 person with 9 and 2 people with 4. So you think you need to do something about that, and that you then turn to the tiebreaker judge. Excellent. Okay, that was worth going back over, though. Right. On with the quiz, I think actually just one before we go too much further with the quiz, because I think this is also important. The rulebook has added an additional restriction on mystery speakers. So anybody can, any Toastmasters member, but it must be a Toastmasters member, can be a mystery speaker at club level. Above club level, so area level and above, you can't be a candidate for district office because it gives you visibility that you would otherwise not have got. You also can't be a participant in a speech contest if you're a candidate for district office, if you're standing for election. So the mystery speaker shouldn't be in the same club as contestants. And remember the material that the evaluators will have to evaluate, and try and do something that people will understand and be able to give a constructive evaluation of. A very deep and technical subject might not be a suitable subject for an international speech, unless it's intended for a general audience. And there will be other subjects that some evaluators might be uncomfortable evaluating. So just be careful and considerate of the evaluators when you're picking the your speaker, your test speaker. Okay, right, on with the quiz, if people are finding that useful. Right, so contestant in the evaluation contest can we share the results for this, John? So, to be a contestant in the evaluation contest, more people got it right than wrong, which is good. Your only requirement is to be a paid member of the club that you're competing for. You don't need to have completed any speeches. You do not even need to have completed any evaluations, which might come as something of a surprise. Can we go on to the next question, please? What about a contestant for the International Speech Contest? And remember, you can select all that apply. And to answer that, to compete in the international, this question applies at club level for the International Speech Contest. Okay, if we can share the results, please, John. So to compete in the international speech at whatever level, you must have completed 6 speeches in the Competent Communicator Manual or earned certificates of completion in levels 1 and 2 of any path in the Toastmasters Pathways learning experience. That should be a verbatim quote from the manual. You should also not be standing for election as district officer, and you do need to be a paid member of the club in which you're competing. You don't need to have any you don't need to have completed any evaluations, although actually in practice to complete level 1 and 2 you do need to have done an evaluation, I guess, but you will have okay, next, but if you're using the old manuals you don't. Okay, if you're standing for area director, can you compete in the speech contest? And let's end the poll and share the results. I've got quite a lot more questions and answers, but actually I think I've used 3/4 of an hour. I think I'm going to wrap up the presentation and then give time for people to ask me some questions, because I think that would probably be more valuable. So if there are any burning questions you have, I will start sharing my screen again, and then give some sort of final thoughts, and then we'll go to some questions and answers. So remember, plan ahead. If you're organising the contest, have enough judges. It's really useful for the judges. Have a backup plan for what would happen if something went wrong, or at least have thought about it. Think about the Zoom choreography as a contest organizer. And as a judge, remember, this is a real opportunity, a real learning experience. Enjoy it. I certainly have really learned from it. And remember, we do this because it's supposed to be fun and rewarding. We're all volunteers, so take it seriously. Not everybody does, but remember, we are all volunteers. We are all learning, just as in speaking, you learn by doing. In judging, you learn by doing. Right, Okay, that's enough of the presentation. Question and answer session. So has anybody
Well, the first
got...
thing, Chris, can we clean up the final answer? A candidate
yes,
for area
please, yes.
director.
Oh, yes. If you share the result.
Most
And-
people answered false.
And if yeah, that's quite correct. If you're a candidate for area director or indeed any other district office, you are not eligible to compete in a speech contest. Okay, right. Questions and answers. Does anybody want to stick their hand up to ask a question? Helena has put in the chat, last year at Division Contest, a backup test speaker was necessary. That wasn't necessary at our contest, but yes, that's really useful to know. And it's really useful to make sure you have a backup. And they could potentially be performing another function and be in the room, even if they're not there as a test speaker. But yeah, people don't turn up for all sorts of reasons. So do think about what you might do if it all goes slightly awry.
It's good to have a backup person who can cover many things rather than trying to get a backup for every single role. But Richard, you have a question.
Just to confirm with Christopher, the speaker tonight, well done. But obviously at the club level, you can arrive at your people who you're putting forward how you like, as you probably know. So there's no hard fast rule for that, is there?
Yes, that's one of the questions we haven't got to yet. But yes, you're quite right. I encourage as much participation in as many speech contests by as many people as possible. And I have to say, when going in person, those contests where you had lots of people were much better. But you're quite right. If a club doesn't wish to hold a speech contest, they can decide by whatever means they like to nominate somebody, or if there are only 4 clubs in an area, to nominate somebody to represent the club at area level. And I would very much encourage clubs to do that, even if they decide not to hold a contest. And I would encourage them to hold a contest, but if they decide not to, please do take the opportunity to nominate people through to the next level, to area level. At area level, you must hold a contest and above. And if there's 1 participant, they can still be disqualified. So if you hold a contest with 1 participant and they're disqualified, that unfortunately is tough. They can't go through to the next level. But no, thank you for that, Brian.